Hi, and welcome to Tapped into Hudson. I'm Steve Lenox, and I'm the publisher of Tap into Jersey City, Tap into Bayonne, and Tap into Hoboken. We come another week in quarantine, in isolation, staying away from each other, trying to heal and get healthy from COVID-19. But we're also trying to support our local businesses. It's a big part of what Tap into Jersey City and all of our Tap into sites try to do. We want to support the economies that our readers also support. So with that, we have two very special guests joining us, of course, remotely. But we're going to bring two guests, and we're bringing Carmen Mendiolla. She's the president of the Jersey City Restaurant Association, and also Rachel Sieg. She's the executive director of the Jersey City Downtown Special Improvement District. Carmen, Rachel, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Thank you for having us.
How are you? Nice of you both to join us. Thank you for taking time out of your day for this. You know, I want to start by talking, before we think about what's going on with COVID, let's think about a Jersey City before COVID and a Jersey City after COVID. Why has Jersey City become such a great destination for restaurants?
Well, Jersey City has been working to try to get restaurants downtown for a long time. And I can tell you that it's been a slow process. We finally got there right before COVID. Now we're in COVID. And I think, our restaurants, and I'm going to say this, I'm a little biased, but we have some of the best restaurants in New Jersey. They come from across the street. They come from Hoboken, from Newark. So, we were doing very well before COVID. And now we're trying to come up with new ideas how to keep the restaurants going and maintain the folks that we employ and so on and so forth.
And one of those ideas that you've brought up is you're doing Jersey City Restaurant Week, or really Jersey City Restaurant 2 weeks, it looks like, January 26th through February 9th, I believe. Tell us a little bit about that. What's going to be happening for the Restaurant Week?
Well, we have, I think, and Rachel, you can correct me, we have at least 20, 25 restaurants already on the list to participate. So these restaurants are going to be offering either a lunch or a dinner menu, 3-course dinner menu. It goes from 21, 31 to 41. Some of these have tremendous amount of a palette, such great, chefs that we have. So their dinners and lunches are super. They're great. So, we wanted to connect back with the community. The community has always supported the restaurants, and we want to make sure that we keep in the forefront how, we're in this together, and we're working extremely hard to make sure that we bring the people here back to Jersey City.
And if you don't feel comfortable dining in, you can also I know a lot of the restaurants are doing takeout options. I just saw online tonight, Latham Houses, they just posted something online, because it's snowing here in Jersey City. If you don't want to leave the house, you could definitely do a takeout or delivery with Restaurant Week.
Right.
All right.
So
Rachel,
the idea came out of, in New Jersey, we have 25% capacity indoor. And we were so grateful to have the city connect with us last year to do some of the parklets that we did. So we had that little bit of breathing room with some of the restaurants. So having said that, we have a tremendous responsible restaurant owners that are very conscious of the COVID, the situation. And, we have these discussions often on how to continue to maintain, because the wealth and safety of our staff and foremost the customers. So we're on top of our A game with knowing how to, capacity, how to handle it. And, that's why Restaurant Week, even though Rachel's talks about the takeout, whatever works, but we want the folks to come inside the restaurant knowing that we take a lot of precaution to make sure that we're safe.
Carmen, that's very helpful to know. Mayor Fulop has talked a lot about these restrictions, and he, I think, has sort of said, as long as our restaurants are abiding by the restrictions, we should allow people into the restaurants. We should allow them to dine, because that's not where the virus is spreading, we don't think. So specifically, what are some of the steps the restaurants have taken? I've seen partitions between tables, of course, gloves on the servers. Are there some other things you can let our readers know the restaurants are doing actively to make sure that diners stay healthy?
Yeah, look, we're doing contact tracing. We're doing when the staff comes in, they're doing the thermometers to make sure that none of your employees. I can tell you that I started with my restaurant, and I think some of them have followed, is to have the employees get tested. So if there's an issue, then obviously, you have to move it around, whatnot. I could tell you that I think our numbers are very low in any restaurants having issues with having COVID employees or customers. We do take a lot of pride, and I know that the mayor would say otherwise in what we do. So we sanitize, we clean every table. As soon as somebody gets up, you have the dividers. There's a lot of attention being paid to this. I can tell you that from talking to many of the restaurants.
And we also, we started about 6 months ago, we partnered up with a COVID truck for the restaurants and businesses. So let's say Carmen wanted to get one of her employees tested today. They could just go over to our truck, the historic downtown truck, and get tested for free. And she would know probably in the next 24 to 48 hours if they are positive or negative.
Yeah,
that's
Steve,
great.
those
You've taken some great.
conversations, those conversations, I think with the gravity of, the COVID and, the numbers, and we're conscious of the numbers. We want to make sure that everybody's healthy. And I think I know we have the conversation with the restaurants, right? We have these conversations so that we're doing it right,
That's great. Carmen, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a couple-minute break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more. I want to talk again about a Jersey City restaurant scene outside of COVID. With that, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Ferns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Ferns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Ferns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net. Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Hi, and welcome back to Tapped into Hudson. I'm Steve Lenox, and I'm the publisher of Tap into Jersey City, Tap into Hoboken, and Tap into Bayonne. We're speaking right now with Rachel and Carmen. They're heading up Jersey City Restaurant Week. We want to go back and talk a little bit more about how we can support the local restaurants, the businesses. They're such an important part of the Jersey City economy, and we need to make sure that they stay fully online as much as they can during this COVID outbreak. Carmen, Rachel, thank you so much for staying with us.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, when we were offline there, we were talking for a few minutes about this DoorDash grant that's available through the New Jersey Restaurant Association. My understanding is it's going to provide between $5,000 and $10,000 to local restaurants. And I know this is something you're supporting and you're encouraging your members to apply for. Applications will open up February 1st. Are there other efforts like that the Restaurant Association has been pushing for to make sure their restaurants can stay viable and stay economically sound during this COVID crisis?
Well, Steve, I can tell you that we've been in communication. We have been in communication with the governor's office. So we were able to successfully allow the liquor license expansion of serving alcohol to the outside. So that was big. Yep. It was due to expire. We've reached into some of the governors, tapped into some of the governors, funding that they have for restaurants and we're looking into the small loans, business loans for the restaurants, the ones that need the money,
And then we also expanded several of our walkways, so our sidewalks. So for instance, Grove Street near us, a lot of them didn't have outside seating.
Right.
So we had the conversation with the mayor, and the mayor was 100% for it, where they could expand their outside seating to the street, which I think helped a lot of the restaurants survive during the summer months.
Something else I want to point out too. I mean, we talked about the jobs impact of restaurants in Jersey, and we know it's thousands and thousands of jobs, probably tens of thousands, I would imagine. But something I realized, and you sent this to me in an email, right before Christmas, the restaurants got together, as difficult as times have been, they got together and they served food to about 1,000 people in downtown Jersey City. Mm-hmm. Tell me about these philanthropic efforts. How are they continuing to keep these going in Jersey City?
Look, Steve, I could tell you that the times have been hard. They're still hard, but I think what keeps us going is that we're very resilient in Jersey City. So having the support that we have, whether it be through the mayor's office and the government and whatnot, we just continue to do what we have to do. So yes, collectively we employ lots of people. I could tell you that we one day in conversation with some of the restaurant owners, and I spoke to Rachel about it, and we said, hey, look, we need to do something for the community, right? Because everybody's first responders, obviously, always and foremost. And then we wanted to do something for the community. And we had, I think, 18, 20, maybe 25 restaurants, Steve, that came together. Yeah. And we set up shop outside, and it was scheduled to go from, I think, 12 to 6 o'clock. And by 4:30, we ran out of food. And it was so beautiful to have that when you have, we put to the side what the issues are that are affecting us. Yes, collectively, we're thinking about the employees, their safety, the customers. It's a great deal of pressure. But when we put that together, it was just so joyful, so we called it Christmas around JC. The restaurants came together.
What a great effort. And I know so many people appreciated that. It's so important to put food in our bellies this time of year, especially, when food insecurity has become such a greater issue. It's great that you found a way to support those efforts. I want to talk before we wrap this up about a Jersey City as a food destination after COVID-19. And I know Mayor Fulop isn't sitting around waiting for COVID-19 to go away. He's already taking steps, improving pedestrian plazas and making sure restaurants have the space they need to thrive. Rachel, can you talk a little bit about the Newark Avenue project?
Yeah, so we've been working on this project, I think, for the last 2-3 years. I think it's about $6.1 million project that's been going on. And basically, we are going to lift the street and make it cobblestone, put a stage out there. It's going to expand the walkway, put flowers out there. And we're hoping this will help the restaurant succeed. And they can also expand their outside seating. We're trying to get it done, hopefully, cross your fingers, by spring. It's really important to me that this project is done by at least the summer.
Steve, I can tell you that if you can make it as a restaurant in Jersey City, you can make it anywhere.
Is that true?
That's true. Come.
What is it about yeah.
I'm sorry.
I want to hear more about this in our final minute. I want you to really tell me something about the restaurant industry in Jersey City and why you say something like that. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. To paraphrase.
Look, I can tell you that right before COVID, we were doing very well. We had a livelihood in Jersey City. So the restaurants are doing well. People were coming from different. So we made it a destination. So the Newark Avenue, for example, I'll use it as an example. It had a destination. It has a destination. You have Porter Restaurant, you have the Ashford, you have Helen's, Skinner's. So it's growing. So the list grew from the restaurants, and it was so folks would actually walk around Newark Avenue, go from establishment. So after COVID, we've had some other restaurants open up. So post COVID, my God, I think if you can make it in Jersey City, you can make it anywhere with a restaurant. We're gonna have top of the line.
Excellent. That's such a positive way to end the segment. Carmen and Rachel, I'm excited as well. I know our readers and our viewers are excited to get back to dining in full capacity in Jersey City. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to being in all of the restaurants soon. With that, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with Jake Hudnut, Jersey City Prosecutor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stevens Jersey City Ford, located right off of NJ 440 North. Across the Hudson Mall is your one-stop for all your automotive needs. Check out Ford's latest models like the 2020 Ford Fusion with its stylish looks and hybrid options, or the unparalleled high-performance 2020 Ford Mustang. The 2020 Ford F-150 Raptor is ready for those rugged off-road terrains with trail control. Need a mid-sized truck for your towing and hauling? The 2020 Ford Ranger will deliver. The 2020 Ford Escape is a luxury SUV that was made for comfort and adventure on the go. Returning is Ford's legendary Bronco, which takes you back to the true meaning of off-roading. They are now available for pre-order in our showroom or on our website. Let us help you find your next vehicle. Stevens Jersey City Ford, 201-432-7272.
Hi, and welcome back to Tap into Hudson. I'm Steve Lenox, and I'm the publisher of Tap into Jersey City, Tap into Bayonne, and Tap into Hoboken. We just finished a great conversation about Jersey City Restaurant Week starting January 26th and running right up through February 9th. We hope you'll take this as an opportunity to go out and enjoy Jersey City's restaurants in a healthy and safe way. And with that, we're actually going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go to Jake Hudnut. Jake is the city prosecutor for the city of Jersey City. Jake, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Steve. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for joining us. Before we get into the important part of this conversation, I think you saw a little bit of those first two segments filming, and we were talking about Jersey City Restaurant Week. What's your favorite restaurant in Jersey City? I'm going to put you on the spot right away.
Oh, I feel like that's not fair because it's like a Sophie's choice. But I will say when I ran for city council, I had a fundraiser at Atlas. And after my swearing in, I had the quote unquote after party at Atlas and love their decor, love the owners. And I do like to pop in there and sit at the bar. But I do love all the restaurants on the plaza.
Jersey City's done a tremendous job attracting restaurants, Jake. Something else I want to touch on, a little bit of fun here. You have sort of a side hobby when you're not acting as the Jersey City prosecutor. You like to make cocktails. You're a bit of a mixologist, and you've taken to Zoom and create a bit of a brand around that. How did you get into mixing cocktails?
It was just a New Year's resolution one year. It was something that I always wanted to know about. So I took a course at the Institute of Culinary Education in Lower Manhattan. And there's a really great teacher there, and I got hooked. And my passion was very similar to why he became an instructor is, when you're a young person, you're taught all about your veggies and all the good stuff you need to eat and not eat. No one ever really tells you about responsible drinking and what goes in a well-crafted cocktail. The point of drinking a well-made cocktail is not to get inebriated. It's actually an experience, just like a fine steak or a fine meal. So I enjoy kind of learning that. And then during the pandemic, when we were all virtual, I took that as an opportunity to post some of my own courses and kind of pass that knowledge along.
And what is your favorite cocktail to make, Jake?
It goes back and forth between just the martini or the Manhattan. They're both very similar and super easy to make, and kind of all recipes kind of take off from those two drinks.
Good old standbys. Jake, I do want to talk a little bit about the job because that's really why you joined us. You were a defense attorney for a while. You talked in an article that we wrote in Tap into Jersey City about your travels around New Jersey. You'd be in these different courtrooms, whether they were these big, large, grand courtrooms or these, little rooms in the back of a municipal building somewhere. And I think the way you said it, you felt that the way justice was being served up sometimes for your clients left something to be desired. And you thought that maybe the court system could work better for your clients. Am I portraying that accurately?
Absolutely. When I would get a client that had just recently been arrested and we weren't sure if their charges would end up at a county court, which would be an indictable or a felony, to use common parlance, or in the municipal court, which would be a misdemeanor, or what New Jersey law calls a disorderly person offense, I almost sometimes would feel somewhat better when it landed in the high court, even though that meant it was a more serious grading, because up there I knew there was a fair shake and there was a shot at justice, whereas the municipal courts were what Justice Albin once referred to how criminal courts can go the wrong way and become conveyor belts. Municipal courts across the state, with the exception of ones like Jersey City, which run 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, felt like a bit of a conveyor belt, and I didn't like seeing that or experiencing it on behalf of my clients.
You spoke of the court sometimes being looked at as a revenue generator for some of these municipalities. So Jake, you fast forward and you've been a defense attorney, you've been a city councilman for a spell, and you get this opportunity to be prosecutor for the city of Jersey City, to work under a leader that I think most people would consider very progressive in Mayor Stephen Fulop. And you immediately jump into this issue of marijuana reform or marijuana legalization and social justice. How did that play into your first couple weeks and couple months on the job? Why was that so important that you tackled that issue?
Right. Well, one, I just want to say you're giving me too much credit. I lost the council election, so I was not a councilman, but I was a candidate. And
I'm sorry.
why I thought that was the most important thing to start with, and what the mayor and I talked about. One, in the 2017 gubernatorial campaign, then Ambassador Murphy was raising this largely as a social justice issue. But in the spring and early summer of 2018, it was kind of becoming a taxation issue. The mayor and I thought we could return it to social justice, bringing my experience as a defense attorney. But also for me, it also meant a lot to show that municipal prosecutors can and should have integrity. I'm very lucky to have the support of this mayor. He has let me take on a lot of initiatives, make a lot of changes in the city that I think have really brought benefit to the residents of Jersey City. A lot of municipal prosecutors, where it's a part-time, one night a week gig, don't have that support from their mayor. And in fact, every year they have to go hat in hand to their mayor for that nomination. I kind of wanted to show that municipal prosecutors can be taken seriously, should be taken seriously. And I sort of hope slowly we're changing what it means to be a local prosecutor in the state of New Jersey. So we
Jake,
started
that's a
with
great way
that
to
exercise of discretion.
That's fabulous. That's a great way to end this first segment, Jake. When we come back in a couple of minutes, I want to talk a little bit more about some of these changes you're instituting, and specifically the quality of life task force that you've launched. With that, we're going to take a break for a couple of minutes, and we'll be right back with you.
Pinto Properties, Jersey City. Shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces that address your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panapintoproperties.com. Panapinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Hi, and welcome back to our final segment of this week's Tapped into Hudson. We are joined by Jay Cudnut. He's the city prosecutor for the city of Jersey City. And after he spent a couple minutes talking about his favorite cocktail and his hobby of being a mixologist, he started talking about his role of city prosecutor, certainly working under a very progressive mayor and Stephen Fulop, and how they've used the court system to not only bring justice, but also create a better quality of life for the residents of Jersey City. Jake, when we talked a few weeks ago for that article that we mentioned, you talked about the courts being used to spearhead crime fighting and also to improve quality of life. And you've taken that a step further at Mayor Fulop's direction. You've actually created a quality of life task force that's going to be overseen by your office. Can you tell our readers and our viewers a little bit more about what that task force is going to entail?
Sure. Well, when I first became prosecutor and I was sort of zeroing in on landlords that were taking advantage of underserved populations, I realized that many offices were dealing with the same bad actors, but didn't necessarily know it. I would see fire code, housing code, maybe even zoning, going after the same folks and not necessarily concentrating their efforts. And really through no fault of their own, but there had never really been a proactive prosecutor at the center of all this, sort of bringing everyone together. So I convened the Mayor's Quality of Life Task Force in the mayor's name that I chaired, that brought together all the enforcement offices of the city, and we concentrated and coordinated our enforcement. Some of the best practices that came out of that were codified this summer, and we will now have a quality of life division where we've consolidated 3 different types of code inspectors that we had in the city into one, and they'll be cross-trained in a wide variety of local ordinances. And we will continue carrying the ball forward and sort of taking what we learned in the task force and putting it into practice day to day.
Jake, so often, I think you've described it there, municipal government, people work in silos, right? These different departments, never the two shall meet, right? You've really brought that together. How is that going so far? I know you're kind of still looking towards an official launch, but in practice, you've been out there on the streets already. How has that coordination been going so far?
It's been great. And I will say the task force will continue. We will monthly bring together all the heads of the offices that have summon writing ability, because there will still be health and zoning and construction code. and fire code. They will still exist independently of the quality of life division. So we're still going to bring everybody together. There's some stakeholders, community development, who relocates tenants when we shut down their housing because their landlords have gotten so irresponsible. We relocate them at the landlord's expense, not the city's expense. And we're still going to have that coordination, that concentration. And the other kind of C word is it results in more context in the courtroom. And the assistant prosecutor, because my office has been involved the whole time, knows the whole story, knows how the residents are being affected. If it's a vacant lot or a vacant house, they know who brought it to my office, what neighborhood association raised it and elevated it to my office. We have police officers now in the prosecutor's office. We can research what crime and disorder has happened at a vacant property. And so when these defense attorneys for landlords or investors or even some companies we've gone after show up in court, they are caught off guard at how well prepared we are. And we're seeing tremendous amounts of abatement, which is where issues are rectified. And we're seeing great fines from folks who deserve to pay fines. We're not talking about, mom and pop who put their trash out a half early. We're talking about big companies from other parts of the state or even out of state that have either bought up a lot of property here, not taken care of it, or in some instances, run a garbage processing plant and not followed guidelines and polluted our neighborhoods. So we're making folks who deserve to pay a lot of money pay a lot of money. And in the process, we're getting problems solved and having safer and cleaner streets.
Jake, that's so important that you mentioned that. You're making Jersey City a viable entity again. You're making sure that people don't come in and take advantage of what they see as a lawless society, so to speak. To tell me one more time, let's just talk about the day-to-day impact. What do you expect that your everyday resident, whether in the Ward F or Ward A, wherever they are, what are they going to see when this quality of life task force really gets up and running?
Right. Well, I want to divide our inspectors up amongst the city, assigned parts of the city, just like a police department does. And here in Jersey City, we have 4 districts. I'll probably just mirror the same districts for code enforcement. And just like old school patrol, right? Cops on the street, knowing what the issues are, knowing what the problems are that need to be solved, which is really something that police across America need to get back to. That's kind of how I want to start my code inspectors, knowing their streets, knowing the local issues, knowing the bad actors in terms of blight, and tackling it. So I think folks will see a presence of quality life inspectors, and I think they'll know that the city is out there every day cleaning up and making the place safer.
Jake, I think this goes back, in political parlance, this goes back to good government. It's good politics, right? And good politics is good government. You're really trying to form something and make sure that the quality of life for the residents is being looked out for. Jake, before we wrap this up in about 25 seconds or so, tell me about the impact COVID-19 has had on your office and on landlord enforcement and quality of life enforcement. How has that been working out in the past 9 months?
Let me focus on restaurants and businesses because I think it plays perfectly into the first part of your show today. We saw tremendous compliance from restaurants and businesses, including Carmen and Rachel's businesses. And when a business made a mistake, we educated them. We only wrote them a summons if they made a second or third or fourth mistake. Education before enforcement became our motto. We codified it with this division. It's what we're going to do going forward. And where other, the Office of the Attorney General and even Newark were bragging about how many summonses they wrote a day against businesses violating rules, we were actually bragging about how many summonses we didn't write a day. But we still had tremendous compliance. And that's because we led with a conversation before a summons book. It worked. We had the trust of the community. And we're going to continue doing that forward with whatever issue Jersey City has to tackle in the future.
Jake, that's great. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes on the show with me today. Thank you for the work you're doing to keep Jersey City safe and clean and viable for its residents. With that, we're going to wrap up this week's episode of Tapped into Hudson. We hope to be together in person in the studio soon, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay apart. We'll see you again next week. Thank you.